how to pick a good flight instructor, how to pick good students. When you go looking for a flight instructor, you got to interview him. You got to ask him some questions. Now, if you want a piano teacher for your child, you need to get either a Russian or a Chinese piano teacher, okay? Don't get an American piano teacher. I play piano. I got a piano teacher for my son. I went and got the best piano teacher I could find. My son's piano teacher has a doctorate in piano. If you hand her any sheet music, she can play it. Most of it, she just look at it and play it. Most of your piano teachers can teach you 6 months and that's all. When you interview your piano teacher, go to the piano store and get the sheet music für Elise. It's like $2. And when your piano teacher comes over, or you go take your child to the piano teacher to interview him, hand them that and say, play this. If they say, and then they don't play it and they stall for time and run, so they don't have to play it. A lot of if your piano teacher says, oh, I can play that, sets it down and then just plays it, that's a piano teacher. If she sets it up on the thing and plays it and can read it perfectly, that's a piano teacher. So if you hand that to your piano teacher and she puts it over to the side and doesn't want to play it, she's not a piano teacher. 80% of your piano teachers can teach you 6 months and that's all. They cannot take your child further and they're going to ruin your child. Bad habit, bad habit, bad habit, bad habit. You need a good piano teacher for your child. A Chinese or a Russian. Don't get an American piano teacher. Now, if you need heart surgery, you want to find a good doctor. You don't want a doctor that made C's. You want a doctor that made A's. Same thing with your piano teacher. Same thing with your flight instructor. You're going to interview your flight instructor. Now, some of these young kids, they are tops in the book knowledge because they just went through the course and they just did their CFI check ride. Some of the older people like me, I'm not up on all these little new things that the FAA comes up with. So sometimes a younger person is better, but you have to ask them, how many students have you had? How many students have you passed? How many students have failed? If they can't answer those questions, that's a big red flag. If it was me, I would find an older person to teach you. I wouldn't go to these mom and pop schools and get some young kid that's never been in a cloud and doesn't know how to talk on the radio. You're going to learn bad habits that somebody else is going to have to break. I get people all the time. I had a FedEx pilot bring me their daughter. She had 75 hours. Me and her and him got in the plane. How many instructors you had? 4. How many schools you been to? 4. Have you soloed? Yeah. Take your check ride? No. I flew with them. Get in a traffic pattern. She looks at me every time, waiting for me to tell her what to do. She's got 75 hours and she can't fly. And she can't fly. I don't want to teach her. I don't want to be instructor number 5 because some people can never fly. You cannot get a student that's a bad student and put your name all in their logbook and then they go out and crash because you're going to be the first one the FAA is going to call. So you just can't go and teach everybody. Now, I basically can teach everybody if you're teachable, but there's a percentage of students that they're just never going to learn. So when you go to pick your flight instructor, you want to ask them questions. Like I said, how many students do you have? How many students have you had? How many people have you passed? How many people have failed? Do you have a CFI, CFII, and MEI? If they just have a CFI, that's not really good. You need somebody that has a CFI, CFII, and MEI. Now, what is that? A CFI is a certified flight instructor. They can teach you your private. A CFII is an instrument instructor. They can teach you your instrument. MEI is a multi-engine instructor. They can teach your multi. You want somebody that has all three. That means they're a higher level instructor. So I would want that first. I wouldn't go to a flight school. A lot of these flight schools, they want you, okay, you got to buy this, you got to buy this, you got to enroll here, you got to pay the dues. They're trying to get a lot of money for you. And they don't really want you to get your license. They want you to fly. Most of those schools, it takes you 3 years to get your license. And you're going to spend 4 times the money. If you can find somebody that's a private flight instructor and find a plane to use, that's your best bet, because you're going to whoop through it. If you go to a mom and pop school, you're going to average in 3 years 2, 3, 4, 5 flight instructors, because they're going to teach you 6 months. They're going to go to the airlines. You got to get a new one. They're going to teach you 6 months. They're going to go to airlines. You got to get a new one. The average flight in school, do they want you to pass? Yeah. Do they want you to get your license? Yeah. But the main guy is thinking, I got to pay the insurance. I got an engine out. I got tires. It just rained 2 weeks. I didn't make any money. I got to make the payment. They want that plane flying. They want the plane flying. They don't care if you learn. They don't care if you pass. They don't care. They want the plane rented. That's just the truth about it. So when you go to pick your flight instructor, you got to interview him. Another thing, I would talk to some of his students. And another thing, if he's got a lesson, I'd sit in the airport and watch. Does he run in there late, jump in the plane, fly, jump out of the plane and go to the next one? Every one of my students gets an hour before the flight of training. After the lesson, they get 30 minutes. And I tell them, this is tomorrow's lesson. We have a syllabus and we go through there and check every lesson so they know where they are. They know what the lesson tomorrow is going to be. I say, okay, the lesson tomorrow is turns about a point. So I want you to go home tonight and I want you to spend an hour on YouTube watching turns about a point in a 172. Then the next day, when we come to the lesson, we're going to sit down and we're going to do it on the ground. We're going to study it on the ground before you ever get in an airplane. If your flight instructor is showing up 2 minutes before time, jumps in the plane, okay, we're going to learn it. We're going to learn it in the plane today. That's not where you want to learn it. That's the hardest place to learn it. When you get in the airplane, your concentration goes from here to here. You get tunnel vision. You're intimidated. You're scared of the radio. You're scared of the wind. You're scared of everything. That's not where to learn it. You need to learn it on the ground. Practice it on the ground. Chair fly it on the ground. That way, when you get in the airplane, you're going to learn it quick. Trying to learn stuff in the airplane, it's a lot harder. Learn it on the ground first. Then when you get in the airplane, even sit in the airplane before you crank the engine and do it. That's what I do with my students. That way, when you get in the airplane, most of the time when you get in an airplane and you crank that engine, it's $175, $200 an hour just for the airplane. If you're paying your flight instructor $50 an hour, you're looking $250, $300 an hour. You don't want to be wasting that and wasting your money. So ask your flight instructor, how much time am I going to get before we actually fly? Paying $50 for an hour ground is the best money you can spend. Would you rather spend $50 on the ground and then take 3 lessons in the air at $300, which is $900, or learn it on the ground, learn it in the air 30 minutes, it's done, preview the other stuff, and move on? It's cheaper to spend $50 on the ground to pay a good instructor to learn before you get in the airplane. It's cheaper in the long run. You say, oh, I got to pay, it's cheaper. That way, turns about a point, you're going to learn it in one lesson. If you spend an hour on the ground and the night before you watch videos on YouTube an hour and you come to your lesson, you're going to learn it in 30 minutes. If you have to learn it in the airplane, it might be 3 to 5 lessons. That's why you need an instructor that's going to teach it to you on the ground. And he's going to tell you, go on YouTube and watch the videos. I didn't have YouTube when I was young and I had to learn to fly. Everything I learned, my instructor, he was a good instructor, and I had probably 6 instructors before I got my private, because they would cancel, they'd get a job, they'd move on. I mean, it was frustrating. But they've never spent more than 10 minutes with me on the ground. And there was no YouTube to watch the lessons. So I had to learn everything in the plane, and it was expensive. Now, back then, you can get your license for $5,000. Now, realistically speaking, it's going to be $20,000, $25,000, depending upon how you study. If you're going to run up late every day, your lesson's at 8, and you show up at 8:10, you're not prepared, you want to jump in the plane and just fly, you're just throwing your money away. You might as well take a stack of money and pour some lighter fluid on it and burn it, because that's what you're doing. If you're not dedicated to go home every night and spend an hour and open that syllabus, this is my lesson, these are the tasks I got to do, let me sit in the chair and think about it and fly it, let me spend an hour, lock my kids and wife out of the room, and watch the YouTube videos, because that's going to help you. That's going to make you shoot in the sky like this. Same thing with my piano lesson. My piano lesson, I'm on YouTube studying and studying and studying and studying and studying. You're going to go a lot further. So, make sure your flight instructor is going to give you an hour on the ground and 30 minutes after. After the flight, go over what you did wrong, what you got to fix, and he should say to you, every time I land, I ask my student, what is your question? What do you not understand? What do we need to do? They should ask you that. Every time you get out of the plane, I ask my students that, because I want to know what they don't understand. Now, men, teaching men is different than teaching women. Women, they hold the yoke like this. Real light. Men, they do this. And so when they fly, this is men flying. This is women flying. Because they hold the yoke light. Now, a woman thinks like this. You can have 10 women in a room, and all 10 of them talking in 3 languages, and they're all having conversations with each other. It's amazing. Men, you put 10 men in a room, they can't do that. They can talk to one at a time, one at a time. Men think like this. Women think like this. When you go get on your airliner and you see a woman captain, she is always better than a man captain. Now, a lot of men don't like it when you say that, but that's the truth. If I ask the woman, did you understand? No, can you explain it? If I ask the man, you understand. He's got no clue. Because he does, his pride and his ego, he doesn't want to say, I don't understand. Can you explain that to me? Now, that's not the case with every man, but that's the case with 99.9% of men. So you got to know that going in as a flight instructor. So you have to interview your flight instructor. You got to look for red flags. Go take a lesson with him. If he's late on his first lesson and he jumps in the plane and he cranks it, runs it, and taxis and takes off and gets up in the air, then he lets you fly maybe 5 minutes. Every one of my students from day one, they're going to start the airplane, they're going to taxi the airplane, they're going to take off the airplane, they're going to fly the whole time, they're going to land the airplane day one. Now, I'm not going to touch that yoke. I'm not going to scream and holler and grab the yoke. I'm going to be calm, because I'm not going to let them get me into something I can't get us out of. So I'm going to be real nice and calm. I'm going to take you up on a clear day, no wind. It's going to be a nice and calm teaching environment. I have people fly with me, they say, I flew with this other guy, he's screaming and hollering and grabbing the yoke. You're not gonna have that with Glenn. When we land, I might put my finger on the yoke and just push it a little bit or pull it back a little bit. It's gonna be drama-free. If your flight instructor is not drama-free, he's not confident with his skills. That's why he's screaming and hollering and grabbing the yoke, you know. I've had students come to me, they said, man, my other flight instructor, he was screaming and hollering and grabbing the yoke, and that's not good. If he comes to his first lesson and he's late, he doesn't let you crank that airplane, he doesn't let you taxi the airplane and take off and land, he's not a good flight instructor. With me, you're gonna do that day one. I have had people solo in 6 hours. 6 hours. Most it's 10, 15 hours. But if you apply yourself and you study, you can solo in 6 hours. Not everybody. But if your flight instructor runs out there the first lesson, jumps in the plane, let's go. He doesn't let you do anything. That's a bad sign. Any problem you have when you're dating is a teenager or a young adult. Any problem you have when you're dating, when you get married, it's going to be 10 times worse. And on your first lesson, if you have little problems like that, screaming and hollering, grabbing, they don't let you do anything, it's going to be 10 times worse. You're never going to get your license. That person is taking advantage of you. Flight instructors, oh my God. Flight instructors. If your flight instructor has bad breath, if he's stinky, just get you a new instructor. If he's late all the time, if he doesn't let you fly. I got a girl one time, I think she had 15, 25 hours. Couldn't taxi, couldn't do the radio, couldn't take off, couldn't land. Let me see your logbook. Well, my flight instructor, he never has signed it yet. She's got all those hours, nothing in her logbook. If your flight instructor doesn't sit down after every lesson and fill out your logbook, you need another flight instructor. He should take the time to sit down. It takes 2 minutes to fill out your logbook. I see people all the time come to me. Oh yeah, I got 15 hours. Let me see your logbook. Well, you only have 3 lessons in here. Well, my flight instructor didn't do it. He says he's gonna do it next time. Every time he says next time. Bad flight instructor. You're paying him. You demand, you tell him, look, I want 1 hour before my lesson. I want an hour lesson. And I want 30 minutes after. If you're getting a 2-hour lesson in the air, you're just throwing your money away. 45 minutes in the air and you're spent. Your brain is tired. It's very stressful and it takes a lot out of your brain to take a lesson. Some people can take an hour and a half, 2 hours, but most of your students, 45 minutes, I mean, you're just done. You're just done. So you need to tell your flight instructor, I want an hour on the ground. I'll pay for it. I want an hour flight and I want 30 minutes on the ground. He's not the boss. You're the boss. He's your employee. You're paying him. Don't let him dictate and be a dictator to you. You are paying him. A lot of people get this wrong. They put their flight instructor on a big pedestal and they worship the guy. Don't worship the guy. You're paying him $250, $300 for a lesson. He should be teaching you. If you're not walking out of there, wow, man, I learned this today. I did this today. Every time you should be doing this. If you're doing this and you're never doing this, you need to get a new instructor. And if he has these bad straights, fire him. Say, look, just be nice about it. Look, it's not going to work out. I want to try somebody else. Tell him that. I wouldn't go throw my money away on that. If you got an airplane that you got access to, I can get your private license in 1 month. But you got to study. You got to come prepared. You got to study. I tell my students, if our lesson's at 8 o'clock, I expect you to be there at 7:30. I want you to get the book. I want you to go out there and pre-flight the plane. like I tell you, I want you to circle that plane twice. Are there parts hanging off? Is there fluid on the ground? Are the tires flat? Then I want you to get in that plane and turn that battery on and make sure the battery's not dead. When you turn the battery on, you're going to put the flaps down a little bit so you can inspect them, and you're going to look over there at the fuel. If it's got half a tank of fuel, I want some fuel. I'm not flying with a half a tank of fuel. If it's full of fuel, fine. If it's got 3/4 of a fuel, fine. If it's got half a tank of fuel, I want some fuel. So I expect a student to do that day one. It's very simple to look at the gauge and see if it's here, if it's here, if it's here, or if it's here. Now, you can't go by that gauge. Most of these airplanes are 50 years old. You get out of the airplane, open the fuel tank, and you look down in there and make sure there's fuel. If it's a high wing, then you get the ladder and you look in those tanks and make sure there's fuel. I expect my students to go out there, circle that plane, check the battery, check the fuel. Because if your lessons is 8 o'clock and your instructor comes running in the air and you haven't been to the plane, he hasn't been to the plane, then you got to pre-flight the plane. There's 30 minutes. Then you look in the fuel tank. Well, we got to get fuel. So that's another 30 minutes. He's going to charge you. You've done spent $50 to fuel the truck. You're spending basically $50 to get the truck fuel. The instructor likes it. He loves it. He says, man, I got so-and-so today. They're not going to be prepared. He's not going to check the plane. He says, I want to make $50 watching them fuel the plane. That's a crooked flight instructor. You should be calling the police. Police, because he's robbing you. He's robbing you. He should tell you, I want you, if our lesson's at 8, I want you to come at 7:30. I want you to get the book. I want you to circle the plane. I want you to check the battery. I want you to check the fuel. If it has anything less than 3/4, just go back in there and tell the lady at the desk, can you top off my airplane? Then it's done. That way, when your instructor gets there, it's done. Now, your pre-flight is not going to be perfect. Any good flight instructor is going to check your pre-flight. You know what I do? I take a piece of paper and some tape, and I put number 1, and I hide it on the plane. I had 3 or 4 of those. I don't do it day 1. I do it maybe 2 or 3 lessons in to make sure my student's going to catch it. And sooner or later, he's going to say, there's a piece of tape here with a number on it. And he's going to do a whole lot more thorough pre-flight. He wants to make me happy and impress me. So after you do that 2 or 3 times, your student is going to really start pre-flighting that plane. I got a guy who's an anesthesiologist. Oh my God, he does an hour pre-flight. I mean, he's just wears me down to a frazzle. I love the guy. I love him. I've known him 40 years. I don't charge him for that. I appreciate that. A lot of times I give so much extra. I had a gifted student. Gifted. I probably gave that student 10 hours of free instruction on the ground because they're gifted. And I like somebody that's taking it in and gifted and comes prepared. I told him, I says, you need to leave this flight school and you need to go down to Florida and go to a good accelerated flight school and get your license. In a year, you're going to have a job. Did that make the flight school owner mad? Yeah, he's mad, yeah. Well, you got to think about the student. This is not about you. Don't be a narcissist flight instructor. Put your student first. That was a gifted student. And a gifted student only comes around so long. If you're a piano teacher and you get a gifted student and you're a goofball piano teacher that can only teach 6 months and you keep that student for 2 or 3 years saying, oh man, this student's so good, I got to stay ahead of this student. That's a bad teacher. A good teacher will say, look, talk to your parents. They're gifted. They need to go to New York City to Juilliard. You know, I know a guy that went to Juilliard from age 9 to age 20. He is a gifted piano player. I pay him to come to my house Christmas and Thanksgiving and birthdays, give him a couple of $100 just to play the piano. Anything you hand that man, he can play it, or most of the time, and I'm talking Hungarian Rhapsody #2, the most difficult pieces, he can play it. He literally plays the piano 8 hours a day. He's gifted. If you get somebody like that, if you get a student like that, don't take advantage of them and rob them. Don't be a robber flight instructor. Tell them, sit down with their parents and the students, say, look, you're gifted and you need to go to a serious flight school. If you go down to Florida, it's always good weather. You're going to fly 4 hours a day. You're going to study 4 hours a day. Fly 4 hours a day, study 4 hours a day. You're going to be off on Saturday and Sunday. Take one day and do your study, and take one day, do nothing. Do nothing. Free your mind. Now, on the other hand, if you get a student that's not I had a guy, he would come to this lesson. He's falling asleep in a plane. I said, why are you so sleepy? You're 18 years old. Why are you sleepy? I was up playing video games at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then, you know what he says? When am I going solo? When am I going solo? When am I going solo? What is VX? I don't know. What is VY? I don't know. He doesn't know the takeoff or the climb or the rotations. He didn't know anything. All he knows is, when am I going solo? Well, guess what? You ain't going solo with me because I'm not teaching you anymore. And I told his mother, he had his own airplane. I said, I'm not teaching him anymore. You need to take that airplane and lock it in the hangar until he gets serious, because he's not serious. I'm not teaching somebody that's not serious. When you take their logbook and you sign in their logbook, we did stalls, we did emergency procedures, we did S-turns, we did takeoff and landings, we did radio, and that student gets out there and runs off the runway or bounces and flips over and tears the plane up, guess who they're going to come to first? The FAA is going to come to you first. They're going to look in their logbook and they're going to say, and if you skip something and that student gets an attorney, that logbook is a legal document. And that attorney can take that logbook and sue you. A lot of flight instructors, they get insurance in case they get sued, you know. Now, if you're having to think about getting sued as a flight instructor, you're not a good flight instructor. So that's what you got to think about. There's good flight instructors. There's bad flight instructors. There's robbers. There's flight instructors that are robbers. They should come with a mask on and a gun to their lesson, because that's what they're doing. They're just robbing you. If they're not letting you day one do the checklist, taxi, take off, land. If my student says, I want to talk on the radio day one, I let them talk on the radio. Some of them are petrified of that radio. I don't know what, and I was the same way. I was petrified. I could not speak on that radio for 10 hours. I was petrified. Right now, I am the best person on the radio in the United States, in the world. It is what it is. I'm the best flight instructor in the world. It's just the truth. I can't help it. But interview your flight instructors. And instructors interview your student. A bad student can get you in a lot of trouble. They can get you in a lawsuit. They can get your license pulled. If you go to your airline job and they're gonna get your FAA and see if you have any violations. And if they look on there, oh, you had to go to the FAA one time because you had a student run off the runway. That looks bad. That looks very bad. You got to explain that. So be choosy about your flight instructor. Be choosy who you teach. I got people that I teach that I have never, ever, one time, ever put anything in their logbook. And I never will. And I tell them, I say, look, I don't mind flying with you, but I'm not signing your logbook. They look at you, well, I don't care. If you got a student and he hasn't gone and gotten his medical, it takes 15 minutes. I see students, 2 years, they don't have their medical. If you got a student and he's got his medical before first lesson, that's a serious student. I see students with 15, 20 hours. Got your medical? Nope. When you gonna get it? I'm gonna get it. A lot of that is because they're scared to solo. When I went and got my cataract surgery, I did not want them to take a knife and cut my eyeball and stick a laser into my eyeball and cut the cataract out. Because I'm thinking, you remember James Bond when he's laying on the table and they're shooting that laser? I think that's what they're gonna do to my eye. And I think I'm gonna do this right here and the laser's just gonna burn my eyeball out. That's my thinking. All the way there to the hospital that day, I was hoping a meteorite would land on my car and smash me so I didn't have that surgery. It was 15-minute surgery. It's the best thing ever. My eye is so good now. I can stand in my backyard and see men on the moon running. That's how good my eye is. But anyway, a lot of people, a lot of students, they don't want to get their medical because they're scared to solo. They're scared to solo. Some of them are never going to solo. 80% of your students are going to fly 10 hours and never come back. The next 80% are going to solo and never come back. You got to know that as a flight instructor. Not everybody can solo. Not everybody can fly. Not everybody can finish. You have to just do your best. But if you got a goofball student that's sleepy, tired, not prepared, always late, you got to cut them loose because they're trouble, nothing but trouble. So, that's my daily rant. If you have questions, email me, call me, message me. Whatever you want to hear about, let me know and I'll try to speak about it. If you have access to an airplane, I will come teach you in a month. But you got to study, you got to prepare. You should have a lot of this done before I even get there day one. You should have it done. I have people say, I'm too old. You're not too old. You're not too old. I don't care if you're 60. Go out to the flight school and take a discovery flight. Now, if you want your child to fly, I would not let him get near a plane till he's 14. If you put him in, I've seen 8-year-olds taking flying lessons. Now, that's good, but they get burned out. By the time they get 12, they're like, I don't even want to see another airplane. If you want your child to fly, wait till he gets 14 or 15. That way he doesn't get burned out. Plus, that keeps him out of trouble. He's not running the streets. When I was 20, I was learning airplanes. I was not running the streets. I would go to work and I'd write one thing on my hand and studied all day while I was working. Getting your child flight instructors is great, but if they don't want to learn, I have people that bring me their kids. The kid doesn't want to be there. He's like this. And I tell the parents, I says, look, they do not want lessons. They do not want to be here. They're not happy. You're wasting your money. Because some parents, they want, it's like piano lessons. They push them, want them to take piano. They don't want to take piano lessons. So if your child doesn't want to learn to fly, mom and dad, don't pressure them into it. That's another thing you got to think about. Anyway, glensflighttraining.com. If you have any questions, message me, call me, send me an email. Thanks.